ALeague Access brought to you by Barry Plant.
Hello and welcome to ALeague Access, the show that covers all things A-League and the world game in Australia. My name is Jamie McGauran and with me tonight is Bernd Merkel. Good evening, Bernd.
Good evening, John.
Before we get stuck into the program, we must acknowledge and congratulate Melbourne City and Socceroos striker Jamie McLaren, who made Australian football history against Perth Glory by becoming the fastest player to reach 100 league goals. He is well and truly on top of the Golden Boot Award and nearing the magical 30-goal summit. Bernd, what do you think of Jamie's chances of reaching the big 3-0?
Well, as you said, he had a superb season so far with Melbourne City, no question about that, and he's a big part of the success that Melbourne City has. I would say yes, he will reach the 30. Of course, there's the big question, will he have to leave earlier during the season because of the Socceroos?
Yeah.
But no question that his form this season is superb, outstanding, and yeah, he will do it.
Is there a chance that he could, at the end of the season, look for somewhere else to go?
Good question. As we know, he was overseas in the past. He played in Germany, in Darmstadt, and then played in Scotland, and then came back, said, look, I want to settle here in Melbourne, have the family here, I want to play for Australia again. And now it's the question, yeah, he's in superb form. There were rumors he might play maybe championship level in England, but it will be interesting. Of course, on the one hand, we want to keep a player like him in Australia because he's great to watch. But on the other hand, for Australia national reasons, it would be great to have him back overseas and have success there.
It's obviously difficult with the COVID situation overseas. It's a pretty safe environment to be here in Australia. So you'd think he'd have to carefully weigh that up for family reasons. And you'd envisage he'd stick around for at least another season and see, and hopefully he can sort of play out a long career here in Australia. Speaking of reaching the summit, the A-League season is nearing the end with Melbourne City set to claim the Premier's plate. However, there are a number of clubs battling for the rest of the spots in the top 6. Any of 8 teams could still make the finals. Bernd, is there anyone in the top 6 who you could see dropping out in the last few weeks?
Look, I mean, Melbourne City is far ahead in my opinion. So as you said, they are set for number 1. Central Coast Mariners over the last weeks, I think they dropped their performance. I mean, they were top of the ladder during the season, so I can see them struggling. On the other hand, if you look at Brisbane, for example, they have a few more games to come up. So in general, it's really a very interesting situation, and I'm really trying to find if we had that kind of situation in the past. So it's very good, in particular the new clubs, Western United, MacArthur, also part of that. So if I could predict it, then yeah, I would be really a good fortune teller. But yeah, so in my opinion, Central Coast Mariners might drop out. Brisbane might come back. So that's at the moment where I see them.
Yeah, look, it's a shame that the COVID situation has meant crowds haven't been huge this season because they're missing a cracking season coming down to the wire, and it's going to be a great finish to the season.
Absolutely, and also, of course, it's, for example, sad for the Melbourne Victory fans, but also Sydney, I think, although they are now back close to the top now, they were struggling during the season, which was for me a little bit unexpected. But as you said, it's really like Central Coast Mariners, unexpectedly good, had the wooden spoon last season. So very, very tough, very tight, and we are really looking forward to an exciting final.
Thank you, Bernd. We just need to take a quick break, but we'll be back with more A-League Access after the break. Welcome back. You're watching A-League Access. Staying on the A-League, reports surfaced a few weeks ago that Mariners owner Mike Charlesworth is again looking to sell the club's licence, this time to Manchester United, who may be looking to follow in the footsteps of crosstown rivals Manchester City. Rumours suggest Manchester United would look to rebrand and move the club from the Central Coast to North Sydney. Bernd, what are your thoughts on this developing story?
Look, if a name like Manchester United is linked to a club with the A-League, that's always a good thing in terms of very interesting, giving the A-League a bit more life and attention. But the question is, what does Manchester United actually want? I was thinking do they really do something similar like Manchester City, who really have built an imperium all over the world with clubs collaborating in India, in Japan, France, Belgium, and in Uruguay? Because Manchester United so far is really the club that it is. So it is only that one brand. And then also, as you said, if they want to relocate them to Sydney, I mean, we already have 3 clubs in Sydney. So if you put a 4th club there and take them away from Gosford and the Gold Coast, the question is, how long will it take then to regain a fan bases there and to get supporters there? Also, how would that model look like? So if they want to buy that license, I mean, we're not talking about the money. Manchester United is really very rich, right? So it would only be a drop in the ocean. But does that mean then they would get the first draft if there are interesting players coming from Central Coast Mariners? Will there be collaboration with coaches? Because if you look at Melbourne City, for example, since they got part of this Manchester City Imperium, I was expecting a bit more when that was announced, with Melbourne Heart transferring into Melbourne City. So I don't know yet, will it really happen? And then how will the model really look like?
And we've seen this season with Central Coast that they've started to get their fans back on side because they're performing a lot better. It's not easy to support a team down the bottom, just ask Melbourne Victory supporters. But the Central Coast has started to build their fan base back up. And obviously the Mike Charlesworth has been fighting with the Gosford City Council for years over the stadium. He wants full access to the stadium, wants to take over and run it, because it's a great ground. And if they had complete control and could run it how they want, then they can make money. As we say, if you control your own stadium and run it, then it's much better for the club.
Absolutely, you're 100% right. And in particular, last season they had the wooden spoon, and now they are back on track, really playing a good season. They can get into the finals and really gaining spectators back. So if you move that club to Sydney, that would be, for several reasons, really, I don't think, a good point to do. And also we are more thinking about spreading out the A-League, right? Okay, we gained 2 clubs, one in Melbourne, one in Sydney, but there are discussions, shall we get maybe one more in Adelaide, one more in Perth? But now having one taken out of Gosford and putting it to Sydney, I would think that would be a step back rather than really expanding the A-League.
Yeah, or move them in the red colours down to Wollongong.
Yes, for example.
That'd probably be the way to go. Thanks, Bernd, for that. Now let's focus our attention momentarily to our national football team, as the ASE have finally announced kick-off times for Australia's upcoming World Cup qualifiers in June. Kuwait will host the remaining Group B matches in a hub format, which will see the Socceroos play 4 matches in the space of 12 days. The Socceroos will face Kuwait on Thursday, June the 3rd, then on Monday, June 7th against Nepal, followed by Friday the 11th against Chinese Taipei, and then Tuesday the 15th against Jordan. All matches will be broadcast on ABC TV. Check your local guides for times in your area. They are quite unfriendly times, but they are must-watch games. Bernd, we finally get to see the Socceroos in action after, I think it was November 2019 we last saw them.
Yeah, correct. So it's really time to get back on track. I mean, if you think we are talking about the World Cup happening in roughly 1.5 years, and we are not even through the second round yet. So it's good to see the Socceroos back. Will be interesting with the A-League season probably still going on, and then also how the squad will look like. So the plan is, as far as I know, to go with an extended squad to Kuwait, and then because it's, as you said, a lot of games within a very short period of time. But no question that Australia is the favourite there.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how Graham Arnold puts together a squad, how many players he brings across from the A-League and Europe, because obviously you've still got to take into consideration that they've got to come back for 2 weeks quarantine if they're coming back to Australia. So it'll be interesting to see who's in the mix and who could be captain. It's fascinating. 18 months makes a world of difference.
Yeah, it's definitely a very challenging season. I mean, he himself said that he watched every A-League game, so he's aware of what's happening, what the A-League can provide, also when we think about the Socceroos later on. I mean, international-wise, as you said, captain is the first, or one of the big questions, right? I mean, Matthew Leckie, Andrew Moy, Trent Sainsbury, so there are a few names in the spot, and then also starting with the goalkeeper, right? I mean,
this is a really interesting one, the goalkeeper, because we've been very settled on that over basically the last 20 years.
Yeah.
But there is potentially a chance, and it may finally be Mitch Langerak, starting keeper.
And I'm with you. I mean, with all respect to Matty Ryan, I mean, he's with a very good club with Arsenal, but he only had a few matches, whereas Mitch Langerak has really a very, very good season in Japan. So in my opinion, he should get a chance, in particular, if you have a few matches where I think the goalkeeper should be set, and then give him that chance in that round, because you can't go wrong with Mitch Langerak in goals. So, and that's already a question that he needs to answer. Also, if he will consider someone from the A-League, maybe Andrew Redmayne, then Lawrence Thomas might be in the draw as well. So a lot of unknowns.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting to have. I'm just excited to have the Socceroos back in action. It just changes your dynamic. It gets everyone behind the team, and then obviously it'll be a balancing act to see with the ALeague and the Socceroos whether he sort of mixes up the squad a little and has brings in quite a number of ALeague players just to get some more training into them before the Olympics.
Yeah, and also it will be very challenging if we might think ahead already, expecting the Socceroos to get through this round now, because then the third round is coming up, and there might not be any home advantage for Australia because of the COVID restrictions. So they might have to play then again away somewhere in Asia, which gives them, the Asian teams, then an advantage. So not easy for Graham Arnold, but still I think we have enough quality with good players overseas that play regularly, and somebody like Jamie McLaren, who is in superb form, and I just keep my fingers crossed that he can keep that form also for the Socceroos then.
That has been our issue a lot over the past, decade, trying to find the goal scorer to help out. Was Timmy just nodding them in? We just never had. Scotty McDonald couldn't make the transition to international football. We need a poacher and just a genuine goal scorer.
Yes, absolutely. And you would say couldn't be anyone better than Jamie McLaren if you see him at the A-League.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I don't want to sound pessimistic, but if you see how he performed when he went to Europe, right? So, and that's maybe a little bit the unknown. If he gets to that level above A-League, I mean, A-League, we have discussed that previously. He's outstanding. I mean, as you said, nobody scored 100 goals faster than him. But when it gets to the Socceroos level, international level, there needs still to be that little piece of, yes, go and get there and score on that level, please.
Yeah, no, it's exciting. Thanks for that, Bernd. We just need to take another quick break, and we'll be back with more ALeague Access after the break. Welcome back to ALeague Access. Let's turn our attention to round 21 of the A-League season, where Western United versus Sydney FC kicks off the weekend. Both teams desperately need a win to keep their finals hopes alive. Bernd, so what are your thoughts on that game?
Well, Western United had this devastating 5-0 loss against the Wanderers. Sydney is back on track in my opinion, and they really look strong also when you think about the finals. They have the experience, so they are definitely the favourite and have a win in that match.
Do you think the Sydney FC fans will start getting back to the games again?
I hope so. I mean, spectators is always a bit of a challenging question, right? In the A-League, we are always struggling with that. But if Sydney is going to perform the way they did over the last weeks in terms of really getting better and making people excited for the finals coming up, I'm very optimistic.
There was 21,000 at the Sydney Derby a couple of weeks ago. That was really good to see. Finally, the biggest crowd of the season. It was pretty exciting again.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I mean, if you look at Sydney, I mean, we We used to have these crowds back in Melbourne with Melbourne Victory. Unfortunately, that didn't happen this season anymore. And it's so important also for the people to see, okay, the crowds are coming back, and then we'll get into a little bit of hopefully an improving circle that people, hey, my friend is going, I want to go as well, and see these matches, in particular when it comes to finals.
Hopefully another game with big crowds is the F3 derby between Newcastle Jets and Central Coast at McDonald James Stadium. Surely Central Coast solidify their place in the top 6 with this game.
Yeah, I agree. For Newcastle Jets, the season is done, and unless they might have a really very, very good day, but Central Coast Mariners, although they were dropping their performance over the last weeks, but for me, the clear favourite in that match.
It's a really important game for them to really just nail their spot in there, because it'd be really disappointing if they slipped out and ruined such a good, promising season.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And then in particular, if it's that derby, I mean, just imagine, and you're playing against Newcastle down there in the ladder, no chance to get back into the finals. So from that end, a bit of pressure from Mariners, but I think they can handle that.
Yeah, for sure. On Sunday, we see Melbourne City host Wellington Phoenix at AAMI Park. Any chance Wellington can cause an upset here and maybe put some doubt into the City minds?
Melbourne City this season so far is too good, so really very consistent apart from last seasons and the years before where they had ups and downs. So, and again, we mentioned him a few times with Jamie McLaren up there and the superb wins they had. So Melbourne City definitely gonna go for the win.
They're playing at AAMI Park. Is there any chance that we've got the Western United looking to build their stadium, and now the City have moved out to the eastern suburbs of Melbourne? Do you reckon they're going to be quietly looking for a parcel of land out there?
I mean, it would be very interesting to have that, because I mean, AAMI Park at the moment, I mean, they are sharing it most of the time with Melbourne Victory. No doubt, AAMI Park is a great football stadium in Melbourne, and in my opinion, one of the best in the whole country. But it might give the whole Melbourne City support a different boost. So if you have your own stadium, your own ground over there, so if it's possible, why not? Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. On the same day, we have Adelaide United take on Brisbane at Coopers Stadium. The Roar have been quietly sneaking up the ladder. Can they continue to sneak up and try and nab a spot?
Yeah, Brisbane for me really a surprise this season. Adelaide also had, I would say, a decent season with a new coach and a few new players. So in my opinion, that might be a draw. So both teams need to secure their spot for the finals. Brisbane maybe a little bit more to bring to the table, but Adelaide is normally good at home. So I go with a draw.
Yeah, fair enough. On Sunday, we have Perth Glory and Western Sydney at NIB Stadium. This game will be an intriguing one. Who will keep their season alive in this one?
Perth, I guess, very disappointed with this season so far, so really struggling to get back to the finals. The Wanderers, as I said, had this superb 5-0 win against Western United last weekend. So it is an interesting one. So I feel like the Wanderers are at the moment at the better with the momentum. So I go with a win for the Wanderers.
Look, on Wednesday night, we have a big blue between Sydney FC and Melbourne Victory. The Big Blues have lost a lot of shine over the last year or two. Any way Victory can scrape something together here?
Short answer, no, I don't think so. So
they're certainly playing better, and they're scoring. They may be losing a little, and they've obviously had a win under the new manager. But there's obviously there's been a bit of talk of Popovic phoning players and letting them know that thanks but no thanks for next season. So they are in the shop window there, realistically playing for their careers. Other clubs may want to pick them up, look at them. So it's an interesting time to Victory to finish out the season.
That's a good point. I mean, for some players, it's really about their future. But for Sydney, it's like, a must win. And although Melbourne Victory hasn't performed that well this season, I think Sydney is not going to underestimate them. So they are playing at home, and Sydney wants to be up there and to prepare for the final. So even with Melbourne Victory, the players looking into the new season under Popovic, I think Sydney FC will win this.
Yeah, and then finally, Perth Glory take on Adelaide United at NIB Stadium to finish the weekend. Perth desperately need the 3 points. Can they do it?
In that one, I think Perth is going to win that. So although expect them not to make the finals this season, sorry for the Glory fans, but it will be not, given the fact that they had very successful years. This year is not theirs, so hopefully next year they will be back.
Now, Bernd, I just want to touch on one other point. We don't talk about politics much in this, but the Tasmanian state election was a couple of weeks ago. The Liberals won, but Labor had an interesting policy in that they promised to build a stadium for potential A-League side down there. That was an interesting development.
Yeah, that's true. And yeah, as we discussed previously, I mean, there's always a lot of talking, particularly when it comes to election and promises. I mean, the question is also, what does the A-League want, right? I mean, when we have this extension in terms of, yeah, we have a team now in Melbourne, we have a team now in Sydney, but is there really the plan to extend it to Tasmania? I mean, what the politician says is one thing, but then from the sport side, is it really like, okay, I would love to see a team in Tasmania, no doubt about that. Also,
I think everyone would, as fans. It's a tremendous away trip.
Yes.
I remember going down and seeing Victory play Gold Coast down there in a season. I think Michael Thwaite scored a thunderbolt to level it and deny us the 3 points. But it's great to go down there, and if we can be the first sport to have a team in Tasmania, you know, the sole focus of the state on an A-League team, I think that'd be amazing. And a stadium.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And as you said, I mean, I think the AFL also had discussions. I mean, they have guest matches over there. But yeah, to have an A-League team over there and really you have a certain crowd and there is nothing in terms of soccer. So that would be really good, keeping the fingers crossed. But with the politicians, you know, we have to be a bit cautious. There's always a lot of promises, and then do they deliver or not? And in particular, in these times where we don't know with COVID-19 how things are going to develop. So I'm cautiously optimistic.
We've got a very intriguing off-season ahead of us with so much to play out in terms of the new management structure of the league, what's the future, the National Second Division is keep being talked about. I think there's finally a little bit of a spark getting back into some football people's eyes that there might be better times ahead over the dark past of the last couple of years.
Fingers crossed, and I mean, of course, the media are playing a big part of that as well. So I think we really need to bring football amongst the crowd and make it more shining. In particular, the A-League as the big player in that game. But as you said, also the NPLs and relegation promotion has been there on the cards for a long time, which in my opinion is absolutely necessary, because that will really give it. As I always remember Marcus Babbel when he was in Western Sydney, and I had a few chats with him about that, and I think other people say that as well. If you don't have this kind of pressure with promotion and relegation, what's the point, like for teams like Melbourne Victory or Newcastle Jets this season? Surely Melbourne Victory would have taken then the coach and said, look, we need to change something already latest after that 6-0 loss against Melbourne City. So, but as you said, a lot of happening. Also, I think a lot of dependent on the Socceroos. Matildas, for example, had 2 not so good games. And if we look about the World Cup coming up, so let's not forget the national teams, that a lot of interest in soccer comes with our national teams. Yeah,
it's pretty exciting times ahead. Bernd, there's also been a bit of movement on the Asian Champions League front with some movement in spots, and now FFA Cup winner gets a spot in the Champions League. It gives the FFA Cup a real focus now.
Yeah, that's true, and I think we know it from Europe that also cup winners over there have been rewarded with a place somewhere, either EuroLeague or other European cups. So from that end, we didn't have an FFA Cup last season, and I think a cup is really important. I still think it should not only be played in the preseason, apart from the final. It takes away a lot of interest. So because if the season is going on, then at least have the final a little bit later on, and maybe even semi or quarterfinals. And to have this spot in the Champions League might give it a little bit of more interest. On the other end, you must admit that so far the Australian teams haven't really shown much interest in the Champions League, unfortunately. Apart from the Wanderers having won it in 2013, other teams really were struggling in the group stage. So We will see.
What about if Bentley Green suddenly made a push for the Champions League?
Well, just imagine Bentley Green going to the Champions League and playing in Singapore or in China and Shanghai. It would be really exciting. So you never know.
Yeah, it'd be pretty much fun. Well, that's all for this week's edition of ALeague Access. Thanks for joining me, Bernd. I'm John McGauran, and we hope to see you again next week.
ALeague Access brought to you by Berry Plant.